Well, good afternoon, everyone. Here we are again, and we are very proud to be here to sign a balanced bipartisan budget that makes critical investments in state service. It also provides the largest tax relief in state history, more than $600 million for fiscal 2023. And we are also very proud of the $300 million investment in mental health services, which is a 10% increase over our last budget. We are very proud of the $100 million historic investment in childcare, which is the infrastructure to reopening our economy. And we're proud of the fact that we are paying down unfunded debt, and which is going to help us to save $430 million a year. And we're also very proud of the fact that we continue to streamline state government through investments in technology that's going to make us much more efficient. And we do all this complying with all the appropriate federal rules and budget caps. And I have this extraordinary array of people here to weigh in on their favorite part of the balanced budget that we have. So I'm going to bring up first Senator Marty Looney.
Thank you, Madam Lieutenant Governor. And this is certainly, I think, a budget to be celebrated. I refer to it as a catch-up budget, not in the sense of a condiment, but in the sense of making progress on needs that had not been adequately met during the last 12 or 14 years that we have been suffering the consequences of the Great Recession. And this year we have really made progress on so many important fronts. I want to thank the governor for his leadership on that. He had a clear vision of what he wanted to do in terms of a balanced budget, but also one that was progressive. I want to thank the speaker for his staunch leadership in all of this. Our majority leader, Bob Duff, who is here with us and worked hard along this all the way to get to the result where we are today. Majority Leader Rojas, Chair Scanlon, and of course Chairman Fonfara, and the two appropriations chairs, of course, who were integral to the process, Senator Austin and Representative Walker. But some of the highlights, as the Lieutenant Governor mentioned, it is one that provides significant increases to social services across the board and provides $600 million in tax relief at the same time. A significant investment in helping nonprofits who have been underfunded for years and now helping to fund their operations better, because in many cases those nonprofits are receiving clients directly from the state, and their needs have to be taken into account. The creation of a child tax credit, which Representative Scanlon has pushed hard for, and that's going to mean a lot to middle-class families and lower-income families. The expansion of the earned income tax credit to 41.5%. I think just a couple of years ago it was as low as 23% because it was reduced in the 2017 bipartisan budget when we were in that midst of crisis. In addition to that, of course, we've addressed one of the concerns that municipalities have had for a long time about the cost of special education. We've now increased state reimbursement for special education based upon 3 tiers, based upon the need of the community. That's going to be of great benefit. Also extended, of course, the gas tax, the suspension of the gas tax until December 1st, and also expanding the free bus service. So I think we have, in a whole array of areas, we have looked at what the people needed and responded to it, and at the same time looked at what we needed to do in terms of moderating taxes for people who were seeing that as critical for the future. So thank you all.
Thank you, Senator. It's now my pleasure to bring up Speaker of the House, Matt Ritter.
Thanks, Governor. Marty, it's funny you mentioned ketchup, because I was telling Marilyn last night I'm still amazed at the wide array of foods that my kids will use ketchup with. They have really gotten creative with that over the last couple of years. I won't rehash what Marty said. A lot of thanks goes to the chairs and the leadership. I know one of my chairs is exhausted. We gave her some time off and more. But I also want to go back to something that we talked about, Governor, in 2019 when I sat there in your office as majority leader. There is a priority getting budgets done on time. We've been here when budgets are not done on time, and it's chaos for cities, it's chaos for state agencies, it's chaos for a lot of people. and nothing good happens. Imagine coming to this building today, same people, different outcome, negotiating a special session budget and all the difficult decisions you have to make and the way the negotiations change. And so for any governor to get a budget done on time, the way we did, all the successes Marty alluded to, but on time really is a big deal. And the other thing I'll mention is as the Senate President went through all the tax cuts that we made and the wonderful appropriations into mental health and early childhood and raises for child care workers, is a lot of the talk has been you didn't do enough. Right? So the counter to this, even though there were Republicans who voted for the budget, is we didn't reduce enough in taxes. And we've certainly pointed out the federal rules that restricted us in what we could do. But I also would go a step further. Now that that document is done and the vote is over, okay, so you're running for office and you get elected. Would you repeal the child tax credit? Are you going to continue it? Would you reverse the property tax credit? Would you disinvest in the children's mental health programs? Would you take the EITC and go back to lower levels, or would you maintain it at the levels that it currently exists? Would you change the ECS formula? Would you change the help in special education? Would you change the car tax that's going to help 75 towns, particularly those in municipalities who will see about a 25% to 35% tax credit immediately when they get their bills? So I know you wouldn't have voted yes, but what would you change? And you know what the answer probably is? Almost nothing. You're going to have a rainy day fund of $3.3 billion, the highest level in the history of the state, both as a dollar value and a percentage of the budget. You have $2.8 billion or so being paid in the pension fund, creating $400 million in spending cap growth. You also have $1 billion in prior years being deposited. So I know people want a wedge issue, but I got a problem for you that you can't solve. It won't be the budget. It's been a great pleasure to work with my colleagues on this. I congratulate everybody for their successes, and I look forward to talking about the budget for a long time to come. Thanks, everybody.
Senate Majority Leader Bob Duff.
Thank you, Madam Governor. All right, thank you. This is a budget for the working people and families all across the state of Connecticut. This is a budget for cities and towns all across the state of Connecticut. This is a product that has taken literally 10 years to get to this point. Many of us know the days, as the Speaker alluded to, and as the Senate President alluded to, when we had worked because we had deficits, we had to catch up on our pension payments, we had to make painful cuts, but knowing full well when we did those things that we were laying the groundwork to get to this point today. And thanks to the leadership of the Governor, our Senate President, of course, our Speaker of the House, and everybody in leadership on the financial committees, we are at this point today where we have $600 million in tax cuts for the people of the state of Connecticut. We're investing in our cities and our towns all across the state. We're focusing on things like mental health and early childhood education and secondary education. We're making sure that places like UConn are funded so that tuition is not going up even more. So this is a budget that everybody should be proud of. And the fact that, as the Speaker said, we are putting money, we're fully funded our rainy day fund, we're putting money into our pensions finally for the first time, for the second time or third time in 70 years now, making those big deposits again. So this is a budget, whether you want to make investments, whether you're fiscal conservatives like just save all your money, we have gotten the budget here from A to Z for everybody. And this is because of the fact of the work we did 10 years ago up until today, where we have Governor Lamont, Lieutenant Governor Bysewicz, our Senate President, our Speaker of the House, and others who worked so hard, along with our financial chairs, to make sure we stay true to our principles, true to our values, and that we continue to stay honest and true to the commitments we made years ago when we sat down and made those hard decisions, and that today we can continue to make those investments. So thank you, everybody, and congratulations.
Thank you, Senator. And now Finance Chair Sean Scanlon.
When you bat fourth, there's really nothing else to say here other than to say that, as has been said, this is a budget that meets the moment. There are a lot of people across our state right now that are hurting because of things beyond the control of this building, whether it's the price of gas, whether it's the price and cost of inflation. And we, unlike many other states across the country, actually were in a position, because of the fiscal turnaround that we have experienced, to do something about that, to say to the people of Connecticut that we hear you, we want to help you, and this budget does that. As people have said, this is the biggest tax cut in decades. It is the biggest tax cut that people will receive directly, whether it's the child tax credit, which is the single biggest income tax cut in the history of the state, to the child tax credit, to the fact that every single time somebody gets gas in the state, they're paying less than almost every other state in the nation. That is something that we can be proud of. That is something that we did for the people of Connecticut, and it's something that this budget proudly did thanks to the work of many people in this building, the governor, and the entire team that made this possible. So thank you.
And batting cleanup, our great governor, Ned Lamont.
Well, I can save you a lot of time by saying I agree, which I do. I'll tell you how I thought about this, though. I thought about this as our first budget as we're coming out of COVID, and what we want to accomplish and what is the foundation we want to build upon. And for me, the number one priority was getting people back to work, doing everything I can to keep this economy growing. We've had a flattish economy for many decades, and get this economy growing again. Make sure it's an economy that leaves nobody behind and means real opportunity for everybody. And as Sean said, I think it's a budget that meets the moment. I mean, for me, Bob mentioned mental health. I can't get people back to school. I can't get people back to work unless they're ready to get back to work and ready for school. And you've seen all the incredible stress after 2 years of COVID, and doing everything we can to get people ready. And that's why this commitment to mental health is so important. Daycare and childcare. I mean, it's about giving these kids the very best opportunity, but also mom and dad can't get back to work unless we have a good way for their kids to be well taken care of. And this is the biggest commitment to daycare and childcare in the history of the state, and I think it's transformative. I think it's here to stay, as the speaker said. For me, obviously, workforce development is so key. First time in my life, we got 150,000 jobs, having a hard time filling them for a lot of different reasons, one of which people aren't trained for those jobs. Is an opportunity to lift everybody up. So thank you to all the folks and the appropriations and the finance chairs who made this happen going forward. Bob mentioned, and Susan, paying down the pension. That's a nice thing to do. We'll get to that later. And most governors have generally added to the mortgage and said somebody else can pay for it later. I'd like to give a shout out to Dan Malloy. First thing you do when you find yourself in a hole is stop digging. He stopped digging. He was the first governor probably ever that made full payments on the pension, which makes an enormous difference. We have not only made the full payments on those pensions, but more than that, we paid down over $5 billion in pension obligations, which is going to save taxpayers and governors going forward, well over $400 million a year for the next 25 years. That is one of the ways that we can deal with what happens if ARPA and other things change. If there's a recession on the sidelines, we're better prepared for that than ever before. And finally, I had a great opportunity to work with Finance Chair Sean Scanlon and John Fonfara, and when it came to taxes, everybody always promises to cut taxes, and then when push comes to shove, you often don't get it done. This is the largest, or one of the largest tax cuts in the history of the state, and for Sean and Marty and me and the team, I really wanted this to be a middle-class tax cut. For Marty and I, earned income tax credit was so important going forward. It means people earning less than $50,000 or $60,000 don't have to pay Connecticut income tax. Anybody who's thinking about whether they should get back to work, it's one more incentive for them to get back to work. Sean on the child tax credit, doing what we can to help moms and dads afford as they keep going. What we've done in terms of the car tax and the property tax, all the middle-class taxes, is a way to tell the people of Connecticut we get it. It's a tough inflationary environment. We're doing everything we can to make this state more affordable, and that's what we meant to do today. I want to thank Jeff and Paul and the guys who were leading the negotiations. They were every day. Not easy, but we got it done, and we got it done on time. As Matt said, that is a little bugaboo that I think is really important. It helps you plan. Want to sign the bill?
Yeah, let's sign it, and then we'll do questions afterward.
Take a couple of photos and just to get nice and geared up.
Here.
You go, so pause a couple of photos, and then we go give you a 1, 2, 3, go ahead.
Is this one?
Just that.
In different
Can we have different
Yeah, but it's not the same. It's yours.
Here you go,
Go
Sean.
ahead. And then, sorry.
First one, thanks.
Okay.
Emma's going to steal the color. The color.
Okay.
I can spell it.
Hey, what is it?
May 9th.
Okay. All right.
Governor, are you concerned that you did enough? Obviously, the economy doesn't seem to be improving at this point. The concerns from consumers about their ability to pay off their credit card debt and inflation, and I think the average price of gas today was $4.32, so I'm not sure how much we've, I don't know if people feel that they've gotten a break at the pump or that the break might have been temporary. How do you reconcile that with...
We're the third state in the country to get a gas tax cut, 25 cents. We've got that extended along with free bus service. I felt very important to have a timely tax cut. Sean, when it comes to the child tax credit, that's going to be available, what, August, do you think? Yeah. Make sure that money is available. When it comes to the car tax, that's money that's going to be in people's pockets by July or August. I wanted to make a difference for people right now because, as you point out, inflation is still with us. And you're right, there are some storm clouds on the economy. I've seen, the Federal Reserve is raising interest rates. That's never a great thing for the economy. But I think we're as well prepared as the state can be, starting with the rainy day fund, starting with the extra money we get from the pension savings. And we made sure that we don't have a big cliff out there in 2024. But more importantly, I think we met the moment in terms of mental health and daycare and workforce.
I can just, Christine, I can just mention that I was in, I can just, from personal experience, I was in Pennsylvania on Friday picking up a kid from college. And from Connecticut to New York to New Jersey to Pennsylvania, the gas prices are at least 20, 25, 30 cents higher than they are here. So I'm glad we did the gas tax cut because in Connecticut, there is still real relief for families. In the other states, there's not, and it is much higher and much more expensive for working families all across their states.
Governor, the three previous budgets that you have signed have raised taxes. I mean, this is a $600 million plus tax cut, but I believe if you do the math, if you back out the increase in revenue for revenue growth, that the tax increases that you proposed exceed the $600 million in relief that you're providing now. So how are you going to reconcile your tax cutting budget here with the three other budgets that you have signed that have raised taxes, including income taxes on some taxpayers, broadening the sales tax, a whole number of other initiatives?
Yeah, I dispute your premise on that. I mean, I'm the first governor in 40 years that does not raise the income tax, that did not raise the sales tax rates. I think that's transformative. I can tell you, as middle-class families and small business that want a little bit of certainty, I'd like to think we gave them that certainty. And now where we are 3 years later, we've earned the right to start reducing taxes. We can do that in a fiscally prudent way, and that's what we're doing. Everybody else talks about it. We've done it.
One of your budgets delayed the income tax cut for teachers. So those teachers who were expecting a scheduled tax cut did not receive that. So therefore, they paid more income taxes. You changed the credit on the pass-through entity tax. As a result, more business owners who were using that tax paid higher income taxes.
Yeah, the only challenge I'd have on that, Paul, is I'm not sure in the 2000 and last year's budget what taxes got increased. So maybe you might be referring to the first biennium where there was some sales tax exemptions that were changed. But that same calculation that I understand, it was one of the speeches from the Republican convention. They talked about that same thing. I read that article. The problem with that is, for example, we gave New Hampshire. I did. No, it's okay. It's okay. I read it. So they said that.
And I've been covering these.
It's okay. Yeah, they said the same exact thing. I'm not saying you read that. I'm saying I read it, and I know what their talking point was. We did pilot for $24 million to Hartford. Should we count that as a tax cut to Hartford? We don't technically, but it is. We changed the ECS formula, which allowed boards of ed to have more money and not raise property taxes. So the same calculation that they used to say you didn't phase things out on the right schedule, we could easily go back and look at the investments in ECS, the investments in pilot, and make the same exact argument how that held property taxes steady or in many cases reduced them. So I think when you play that game, you can do it a lot of different ways. I think you got to look at the revenue that OFA says that we've cut, and that's what we're going to base our facts on for this one.
Governor, do you have any
advice for the Democrats who are weighing whether or not to go forward with primaries for Secretary of State and Treasurer?
I think we have some pretty good nominees that the convention endorsed the other day, but Paz, I think you know I'm not somebody who can complain a lot about primaries. So if they want, people want to throw the hat in the ring, that's their right.
Will you be making any endorsements in those primaries?
Absolutely not. We're going to we're going to continue our no primary, our no endorsement until after the primary. That's the policy that the governor and I have had. We're going to endorse people after the primary, after the voters have spoken, because the governor, I know I've lived 3 primaries, you've lived a few, and we'll let the voters decide. Nonetheless, I think I speak for the governor as well. We are so proud of the very diverse, smart, competent candidates that came to our state convention, and you know they'll be making those decisions over the next week or so.
Maybe we should ask Representative Scanlon for his magic formula on how to avoid a primary already.
Yeah, we did.
Can you talk a little bit about, from the small business owner perspective, what you did to lower the cost of health insurance this year as part of this budget?
Yeah, I'll start with that. You're absolutely right. Healthcare costs are one of the biggest variables that impact small business. It's crushing. First of all, I think the benchmarking is really important, what you guys were able to get past. It's transparency. Right now, paying for healthcare is a black box. This is going to allow employers, Christine, to make a better judgment between different insurance plans, give them a little bit of leverage with the hospitals, give them a little bit of leverage with the insurance players. That makes an enormous difference going forward. I also like to think that Access Health, Healthcare Exchange, what we're able to do in terms of broadening that, in terms of the number of people who are eligible, getting rid of the co-pays and the deductibles for many of those folks, make sure the health care is more widely available, especially a lot of sole practitioners and independent folks out there. Now they have a health care option that's much more affordable.
What happens when that, I mean, you know, obviously we're left with a little bit of a deficit in 2024 with the budget, and, you know, what happens when all that federal funding goes away for that health insurance exchange?
Well, I think we got a pretty good congressional delegation down there in Washington who are going to make sure this continues.
As far as the child tax credit goes, you want to make that permanent. Do you? I thought maybe something you said.
Look, it's the right thing to do. You know, Sean and I, we go back and forth. I got to see what the budget looks like in 2 years. I'm not making promises I can't keep. But is the child tax credit really important for working families with kids? Absolutely. Ought to be a priority.
Shouldn't it be a federal priority?
Yeah. We all wanted it to be a federal priority, but Washington can be dysfunctional at times, not for lack of trying by our champion Rosa DeLauro and our delegation, but because of the destruction and the dysfunction down there, it's not possible, which is why we stepped up this year and did what we did.
And are you disappointed that the ability to purchase drugs from Canada didn't get through either chamber this year?
I would just say
Jump in there.
Yeah, this was a short session, right? This was a budget adjustment, not a new budget. So next year, the new legislator, the new governor will have an opportunity. Well, this governor, but the next governor sworn in here will have an opportunity to do a new budget, to look at bigger priorities that maybe didn't get passed this year. And I'm confident that we will continue making progress along the lines we've been making for years to cut costs, whether it's through taxes or whether it's through health care. The Get Covered program the governor was just talking about has made substantial difference in the lives of people in the state when it comes to affording the exchange. We can do more, of course, and we will do more, but what we're doing right now is working, and it's helping people in a major way.
I can tell you that the drug importation from Canada will certainly be a high priority for the Senate next year. And I think this, again, that's one that's going to be near the top of our list. We got a whole lot done in the session that's very short, but obviously there are still things we want to do, and that's a high priority item for next year, I think.
Me too.
Thanks, everybody. Okay, one more question. Go ahead.
The Republicans in the legislature proposed to cut the sales tax. The presumptive Republican endorsed candidate for governor has also pitched a cut to the sales tax. Do you think that's misplaced, and why? A focus on cutting sales tax.
Well, I'll start and then hand it over to the controller to be. Instead of what? You want to not do the car tax? You want to not do the property tax? Maybe you think we're doing too much on the earned income tax credit? I think having a 1 cent temporary sales tax cut was not the most effective way to cut taxes, certainly not the most effective way to cut taxes for the people in Connecticut, since 20% plus is paid for by out-of-staters. I want tax cuts for the people in Connecticut.
And I'll just add that we wanted tax cuts that were targeted to the families that needed them the most. That's why we targeted the car tax and the property tax expansion. Go ahead, Sean.
Yeah, I would just say, through the majority of the session, the Republican plan was literally not possible to do, and it was predicated upon them winning a lawsuit that several other red states have been trying to do since October to no avail. So they wanted to pass a plan that was not constitutional and not allowed by the federal rules. That's not tax relief, that's pie in the sky. What we did was actual real relief to people. I grew up raised by a single mom. If there's people out there like my mom today that are making less than $100,000, that have 2 kids living in Middletown, they're going to get a $500 check in the mail. That would help people like my mom way more than a sales tax reduction of 0.5 percentage point or whatever they were doing that would not even actually come into fruition because it's predicated upon them winning a lawsuit. So we're delivering real relief. They're talking about things that they wanted to do that they couldn't actually do. We actually did what we said we were going to do, and because of that, there's going to be substantial tax relief for students, property owners, drivers, seniors, you name it, you go down that list, we did it this year, and that's the difference.
Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Marty.